Dark Satellite Media.
You're listening to the Everyone But Us podcast, straight from the heart of London.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Everyone But Us quarantine special. My name's Waymar, I'll be your host today. I'm accompanied by my two prestigious brothers. To my top left, I have Steve, aka Danny DeVito. What's up, Steve? How you doing?
That's the wrong AKA, and you know it.
I'm waiting for mine.
And
Idris, I'm having it.
And to the bottom right, I have my other brother, aka Apollo Creed.
Yeah,
how you doing, brother?
I'll take that.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
I'm good with my Danny DeVito is a cuss, man. He got dashed into the fucking river in the Batman Returns, innit, at the end when he's the penguin.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Shit.
Yeah, I feel a little bit disrespected straight off the bat, and it's like
I'm sorry.
27 seconds into the fucking podcast, and you already got
DeVito.
You can get me back on the next one, right?
Yeah, you'll have to do it. Yeah, next one. You'll have to call him something that everyone usually normally says.
I still think Black Scotch is the best one, man.
All right, so let's get to it anyway, man. Let's get to it. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our next guest. I've been a fan of this band ever since I heard their split with EGH on Back to Basics Records, I'm thinking around 1998. If I could describe their music, it's pure New York hardcore mixed with some peppers and spice and some rice and peas on the side.
Yeah.
With that flavour. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my brothers, Glenn, Malone and Gary from the mighty, notorious Billy Club Sandwich.
What up? What's going on,
guys? First of all, how are you guys doing? We'll go with Glenn first.
Oh, man, just sitting here in New York, just staying out of the way, staying home. So far, everybody closest to me has been healthy, hasn't gotten nothing. And again, rarely go to the store, just going on a couple hikes, going for a walk every week or so, and just sit on my front steps to get sun. It's just me and my wife here, but I got my brother's family upstairs at least. I got two nephews with him, and then a good friend of mine lives upstairs on another floor. So we got a few people to hang out with, not just the two of us losing our minds.
What about you, Malone? How you been, brother?
I'm good. I'm up in Connecticut. I live just east of Hartford. So I'm about 2 hours outside of New York City, but still working, but we working from home. My girl's still working. She works at a place that does like heavy machinery repairs and shit. So they're still working, just maintaining, man.
Okay, cool, man. And Gary?
I am sitting at home in the Bronx. Haven't really left more than a couple 100 feet from my house to go on walks and stuff like that. You know, it's just me and my cat friends here and the wonderful Amazon delivery guys are my only connection with the outside world right now.
So, like, my first question to you guys is, like, following Trump's previous press conference, have you guys been injecting bleach?
We do not follow our fearless leader, so...
I've been off the bleach for some years now. I'm not going back.
Funny enough, we just had Boris Johnson has just been on the news, and he's basically announced that we have to go back to work. Did you hear the press conference?
Yeah, I mean, I think it in some ways it made some sense. In a lot of ways, it was fucking stupid. He's saying, don't go to work. But if you can go to work, but don't take the tube or the bus. So, you know, walk that 27 fucking miles to work.
You need that thing in, what's it, Quantum Leap, Ziggy? You know, he had that thing and he could fucking just jump to any spot he wanted to.
No. You're talking about Al, aren't you?
Was it Al?
Yeah, Al in Quantum Leap with the little handheld thing, and he'd go, gushy!
My thing with Boris Johnson is that press conference, or what is addressed tonight, was just basically to like the lowest denominator type people that we've got in our country, just so that today they can just be like, oh, he's saying the right things, he's doing this, doing that. And it's like, nothing's really changed much. They've changed the fucking slogan from stay at home to stay alert. What's that even fucking mean, stay alert? Like, what do you mean stay alert? Stay alert, like what?
Yeah, I don't know, that COVID might jump out from behind a tree at you and shit.
But yeah, so Matley, you were saying about stay at home things continued.
Yeah, well, New York State, Cuomo just gave a speech yesterday, and he was talking about the possibility of extending it into June, but he hasn't done that for sure yet. He's probably going to extend it into June for New York City.
Yeah, definitely.
But other parts of the state that are more rural, they might start opening, within 2 weeks or something like that. But I don't think, with New York City, I don't think they're going to open anything anytime soon. They're being very careful with it. And it's a good idea because if you look at the numbers, outside of New York, they started opening stuff and all of a sudden the numbers just shot up. So some places actually opened up and then backed off on it a little bit once the numbers spiked up. So New York is kind of doing it the right way.
So you're pro Cuomo is what you're saying, Molly.
So Martin, man, welcome to the Everyone But Us podcast. Martin's just joined in. We're just talking about what you've been up to during the lockdown.
Well, I just actually shaved the other day. So that's a blessing. Well, right now I'm still working, taking care of my kids. I got my mom here now. I had to pick her up yesterday. So now we're in a bad situation. So we're trying to make the best of it right now. But, it is what it is. That's it. Just keeping positive. Once in a while, I'll talk to these jerk offs. And
and they were saying such nice things about you as well.
Yeah, I know that. I know that. I started getting emails about, wow, Glenn really doesn't like you. No, he does.
So out of all you guys, I first met Glenn, I think, in around 1998. It was with Knuckle Dust when Nova Demon Social Value were touring the UK. You don't remember this, Glenn? And you played a town called Margate.
It was in 2000 is when I came there.
Apparently we played a sailor's bar and all you guys were giving yourself pirate names.
Yes. That's where I got seaweed from.
That's it. Now, to give a bit of a backstory, what was your name called?
Well, I mean, there was no backstory. We were on stage, and Dean decided to do the entire show as a pirate. So it was all "R" this and "Army Matey," and then he introduced the band. Our drummer's name is Seaweed. Why? Because when he sees weed, he smokes it. R. And he ad-libbed that, and it was hysterical. I fell off the drum throne almost, and I think the new No Demon record that should come out at some point this year. I'm still called that.
Nice.
And I just want to say, we can't mention Nova Demon Social Value without saying rest in peace to Vinny, man. So rest in peace to Vinny.
Yeah, word.
You guys grew up in the Bronx and Lower Westchester area. Am I right in saying?
Yep.
When I was growing up, I was a big hip hop head. So I grew up listening to a lot of hip hop, and they used to always refer to them areas. Them areas had a reputation as being a tough neighborhood. And that's why whenever you see me wearing a hat, I've got Bronx hat, I've got Brooklyn hat. So I wanted to ask you guys, what was it like growing up in them areas?
Wow. I grew up in an area called, in the South Bronx, but there's a specific area called the Patterson Projects. And right across the street from the Lincoln Hospital, basically. And it wasn't easy, bro, man. Let me tell you, it wasn't easy. Got my ass kicked a couple of times, and that shit wasn't fun, man. Getting smacked up by bigger, older dudes. Oh, now, shit. If I go there, now the older dudes are in fucking cane and on a walker. I'm the one want to slap them in the head. But as I was growing up, things started getting easier. I'm getting into hardcore, because of Glenn, showing me all these different shows. It was just like I started getting more, started getting hair in my chest, started becoming a big boy, It started getting easier because now I'm smoking weed and, I know who to go to. I can go to the bodega, get my, Lucy's, 2 or 3 Nick bags and shit. And like Glenn could live there now.
Glenn's pulling the face. What about you, Malone? What was it like for you?
So I didn't grow up in the city. I grew up in the suburbs, and it wasn't like that. It wasn't a particularly rough neighborhood, but we weren't, my family wasn't, we're just working class. Like, my parents didn't like buy a house or shit until after I had graduated high school, but we just grew up in apartments and shit, but was just a regular working class neighborhood, I guess. When I was growing up, my uncle lived in an apartment below me, and he had a serious crack and cocaine problem. So he had like a crack house in the apartment that was underneath my house. I remember the cops raiding the place a couple of times, dragging him down the stairs by his feet, like his head hitting every stair on the way down. Your surroundings are what they are, but like what happens in those surroundings is different, But I mean, it was pretty cool growing up. I never got my bike stolen. I'll say that. I still got the same bike I had since 1983. I got a Mongoose that's hanging up in my fucking garage now. I managed to keep that bitch for this whole time, man. And they tried to steal it a few times, but I still got that bitch, man.
I don't even know what a Mongoose bike is. What is a Mongoose bike?
Mongoose?
A Mongoose?
Yeah.
It's like a 20-inch BMX bike.
Ah, okay. What about you, Gary?
I grew up in an area of the Bronx called Morris Park, which was, working class area. Not, it wasn't the hood, but it wasn't.
Was it Martin's area?
It definitely wasn't Martin's area. But I grew up in a 5-story apartment building. Like we talk about all the stuff with the virus and people being packed in tight. I was in a 5-story apartment building, living on the 4th floor. The whole block was all apartment buildings, so people were just packed in, pretty tight. But it wasn't really eventful. We didn't have a lot of problems in the neighborhood, a lot of fights. It started to get a little crazy in the early 90s when I was still living there, and it started to we got some gun activity on the blocks and things like that, but it wasn't, it didn't last all that long. And everything was pretty average for me. And then I started getting into hardcore, and, it's funny. We used to take the 2 train down to all the metal shows down at Roseland and places like that, see Pantera and all these other bands. And that's how I met Martin, because you just had a group of kids on the train, and you see a kid with a Pantera shirt or like a White Zombie shirt or something. And it's like, oh, hey, you're going to the show, huh? And then all of a sudden we got 20 of us. Yeah. We got 20 of us rolling down to the show and hanging out.
I remember those days.
Yeah. So
I remember that.
Yeah. It's the same over here as well, man. I always used to have that sort of thing going on. Like you'd just bump into the same people, like on the train, going to each and every fucking show that there was. And that's how I've still got those friends now. It's cool.
Yeah, so that's how I met Martin. And then we were going to hardcore shows. We weren't just going to metal shows. It was going to Wetlands, going to CBGB's, places like that. And Bond Street. I mean, Bond Street was a whole other thing because I worked around the corner. So I used to go to Bond Street. I used to work at Tower Records. I would take my lunch break and go around the corner, go to a hardcore show, go back to work, and then get off work and go back to the hardcore show.
Real hardcore. See, you hear that?
Yeah. So that was all, that was kind of how I met Martin and Glenn. And then I met Malone later on when, Billy Club started playing.
Glenn, what about you, man? Where did you grow up and what was it like?
Well, I was born in the city, and when I was 3.5, we moved to Westchester, basically the same town that Tony lived in, or neighboring town, but it's the same school district and overlapping police. But and then growing up there, I was on the edge of town, so had plenty of space, didn't really have to deal with any bullshit. But then, we met in high school, me and Tony, and around that point, we were only 7 minutes above the Bronx, so we had plenty of kids from the Bronx coming to our school because it was safer. Kids from Mount Vernon, from the hood, they were all using their like aunts' names to come hang out. So even though we were chilling, there still was nonsense popping off, people flashing guns from time to time and whatever. I mean, and then we started hanging out in the Bronx all the time just because we hated the burbs.
Every day.
Oh, really?
Constantly, if we going down the Village, going to the Bronx, buying weed, smoking it, hanging out, and eventually hanging out with Martin in his hood.
Because the Bronx was so close, it was so close to where we grew up. I mean, like, it was 10 minutes and we were in the Bronx. So we were in the Bronx because that's where all the shit was going down.
We went to cop, too. We were always copping.
Yeah, well, yeah, we were buying weed there forever.
But, my father's from Harlem, so even though I grew up in the burbs, I was raised by Harlem, and he, taught me the ways. And now I live in the house he grew up in. I actually live, 10-minute walk from where I was born. I've been here for 20 years in Harlem and watching it become safe enough for everybody to live here now. I moved here in 2000. I mean, I've been coming here my whole life because my grandfather was here, but in 2000, it was still had a lot of flavor to it. Now, I say 2004 is when it started getting safe, but now in the last 4 or 5 years, forget it. It's the Upper East Side now.
Talking about schools, Glenn and Malone, you guys met in, so let's go right back to the beginning. You guys met in school, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
What school did you go to and how did you become friends?
Through the original drummer for Billy Club. I'd known him since grade school, and they would all jam in his house, and I would just come hang out. And then the drummer ran away to, he literally stole his mother's car and ran away to Disney World.
So how did you guys become friends in school then? Was it just before the
we had met? No, yeah, kind of. So we were both like trying out for the basketball team or some shit when we were freshmen, maybe. And he was wearing like an Anthrax t-shirt, and I was wearing like
the Rip shirt. You always talk about. Remember the Rip magazine?
Yeah, yeah. And I had an Anthrax t-shirt on.
You remember this part of it more than I do.
It was something like that, and I was like, "Oh shit, nice t-shirt." And then we started talking, and he was like, "You like Anthrax?" And we just started bullshitting, and. You know, I mean, like what? Like most fucking high schools back then, you know, there was 90% of the population was fucking jocks and the girls that jocked them. And then there was like everybody else. So there wasn't many kids that were into metal and hardcore. So we just started hanging out. And, when, you know, it was even crazy because I was like, I play guitar and he was like, well, I play drums.
Again, the original drummer actually came up with the name, and then, although he doesn't remember it, but I guess the original guitarist wants to call the band Billy Club, and then he was like, nah, Billy Club Sandwich, and drew this crazy drawing that I wish we still had, that he had taped to his drums.
I wish we had that too.
But then he stole the car, disappeared for a few weeks, and then his life went downhill quickly for a while after that, although he's doing great now.
But it's just like me and the original guitarist were like, yo, Glenn, we still want to play, and like, this dude is gone. And he was like, yeah, I'm down to play. So we just started playing together. And it worked like, I don't know what, maybe 3 practices. And we were like, oh, this will be all right.
You tell me. I know the first practice was mad embarrassing and they were like, oh shit, like what are we going to do here? Billy Club was my first band. Not for nothing. I jammed with a couple of hippie kids once before playing with them. So it was a mess, I'm sure, the first practice. I didn't know what the hell to do.
When Billy Club started, did it start as a hardcore band or was it just starting as, we don't know what we're doing, we're just going to call the band Billy Club Sandwich and figure out the rest? Did you know what style of music you was going to play?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So that leads me to my question. And individually, how did you all discover hardcore? Martin, what are you?
Well, hold on. I'm the one that was into hardcore first and then got into metal. These 3 posers were all metalheads first. So now you all go.
That is very true. That is very true. He's like actually, he should be like Uncle Glenn right now. But I mean, I was in high school. I was in a wrestling team. And before I got in the wrestling team, I was getting my ass beat all the time, getting my lunch taken away. So I joined the wrestling team, and every time we trained, it was always like rock music, heavy metal once in a while. So I started getting into it. Then I met my best friend from my first band, Gormentis. So I went up to him. I was like, yo, do you have any Poison videos? And everybody laughed at me. So he started giving me shit. He was like, all right, check this band out. He gave me Sepultura. Amazing. Oh, then after that, he gave me Deicide. That took a while to listen to because of all the diabolical stuff. And I was like, at that time, I was knocking on people's doors, Jehovah's Witness and shit. And so that was kind of hard to listen to. But after I listened to it, amazing, bro. And it just went from there, you know, going to heavy metal shows, meeting up with Gary and shit, like he told the story. Then all of a sudden I met this fucking white guy with the big ass fucking afro hair. And he was like, yo, you got to go to the show. He took me to a show, I think Bond Street, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Glenn? Bond Street?
I had a shaved head.
VOD. It was with VOD. At that time, VOD only had 2 guitarists, no basses.
Oh, shit. So right at the beginning.
And only the demo.
So the first song somebody opened up an umbrella without the material of the umbrella, so it's only the spikes sticking out.
Oh shit!
Swinging it like on stage.
I was there. I remember this
too.
That show, that Glenn has really put me on the fucking map.
So when you saw that, he was bought.
Yep. You know what? At the same time, since it's Mother's Day, my mom keeps knocking on the door, so we're gonna go talk to my mom. How about that?
Oh, yeah. Happy Mother's Day.
Yes.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Hello.
¿Cómo está? No te pone viejo.
Ese Glenn.
Yes.
Ay, no,
Hello.
Yeah. ¿Cómo está,
Martin's mum
muchacho?
on the pod. Awesome.
How are you, everybody?
Very well,
We're
thank
good.
you.
We're good. How are you?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
You having a good Mother's Day? You have a good Mother's Day?
She's Jehovah's Witness. She don't celebrate none of that. Thanks a lot, guys.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, papi, I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Que ya sonó la vez.
Okay, so I'm just helping her cook. So give me a sec, guys.
That's cool. So, Gary, man, what about you?
I started getting into metal at the tail end of grade school, like 7th or 8th grade. And then in high school, kids would always trade tapes. So I got exposed to a lot of different metal bands through that. And then hardcore started to sneak in there. Agnostic Front, Leeway. I think the first ones were DRI and Carnivore. And then from there, just, the first Leeway record, Age of Quarrel. And then the guy who was like one of the biggest metalheads in school suddenly came in one day with his head shaved, side-by-side T-shirt, Biohazard hat, Doc Martens, braces, the whole nine. And everybody was like, what is this? And then started trying to find out what that was all about and started getting into hardcore. And then my first hardcore show was at L'Amour's. It was the Cro-Mags, Leeway, Biohazard, Typo Negative, and White Zombie opened the show. It was before White Zombie was still a local band, and Biohazard was a local band also. But Biohazard was getting huge at that point. And, and for me, that was just like mind blowing. Like I had never seen anything like that. I used to go to like arena metal shows, and this was something completely different. Like dude just getting kicked in the face, and Harley, I'm pretty sure, landed on me at some point.
Oh shit!
And I was just like, wow, what is this? And then started getting fully into it from there. Started going to more local hardcore shows, Bond Street, Wetlands, places like that, and just getting fully into that whole scene.
Amazing, man. So we must be talking, what, like 92 for that show, 91?
That Cro-Mag show was, I think, May of 91.
Wow.
So you guys were way into hardcore way before us, man.
Well, Lewis was only about 3 years old in 1991.
I was 6. I was born in 85, man, when Back to the Future came out. But yeah, man, I was just a little young pup, finding my way, listening to Bobby Brown and shit, man. But yeah, what can you do?
I was 11 that year, and I was just getting into 11 was when I found Maiden and Guns N' Roses and Motorhead and shit like that. That was my shit, and Poison. I was into Poison as well, Martin.
A couple of songs. I'll admit it. I saw him live open up for David Lee Roth.
You saw them live?
Yeah. I saw Poison open up for Skyscraper tour.
I was at that show. That was a great show. Poison sucked though.
Poison killed it, man. They were the best part.
Gary, was you stalking Glenn? You seem to be at all the same shows. I was there as well.
That's one of those funny things, because as we met and became friends, we were in a lot of the same places.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first met Martin, one of the things that I always think about, which is how I know how long I've known Martin, first, like the second, I think it was the second Lollapalooza tour. when Rage Against the Machine opened up.
Yeah.
Martin actually came. One of my friends drove, and Martin actually came with us. What was that? Rage Against the Machine, Primus, and Alice in Chains.
Nice.
And you were throwing up, Martin. You were throwing up dirt after Rage Against the Machine.
Hell yeah, it was like pebbles and shit.
Yeah, because it was all in an open field, so you just saw like a giant cloud of dirt, and we were all like in the pit, and like after they're done, we're all just like covered in dirt, spitting out dirt, and Martin's just like, bleh.
Glenn, I saw Poison as well, man.
Nice.
Listen to this bill. This was 2001, and I was over in New Jersey, and it was Poison headlining. Main support was Winger, then Cinderella, then Faster Pussycat.
Ugh, I can't do it.
Only best fucking show, man.
Poison and Bullet Boys. The rest of it was terrible.
What was the show? I saw Cinderella, Bullet Boys, and Winger.
Yo, Martin, you might have to move your phone a little bit. Your audio is crackling a little bit. You might have to just move your phone a bit. I don't know if you've moved it a bit.
You call me a cracker?
It's crackling like we can't hear. We're hearing every other word. Try that one.
Give me a sec.
That sounds better. That's better. You was going to ask Steve something.
Yeah, you guys know some of the experience that we had. You already listened to. Did you guys experience that shit over there in London?
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit young for that era, so like I was 10 in 1990, just as it was all kind of winding down, and Nirvana came along and stuff like that. But that was what I got into when I first got into the music. The first stuff I heard was Bon Jovi, Poison, White Snake. I loved White Snake, man, as well. That 1987 album, stuff like that, and it was big
White
over
Snake,
here.
mate.
It was big.
That's the band that made me want to learn guitar.
Really?
Yeah, man.
White Snake, really?
I saw them open up.
I only knew
They were terrible. Without Tony Katane, that band sucks.
No, I was never a fan. I was never an album fan. Just the two video songs. I used to fancy they used to have the same girl in the video, the same woman.
Yeah, Tony
Katane on the jet. Exactly. She made that.
Yeah. See, that White Snake. Actually, I saw that video. I saw when it came out because I loved the song when it came out. So I'd have been like 7-year-old me, and I was just like, whoa, look at that guy, man. I want to be like him.
Nuclear Family Records presents the split EP from Cold War and Mantlet. Cold War from South Wales bring you angry vegan hardcore. And Mantlet from Coventry bring upbeat, metallic, mosh-heavy anthems. Find it on Nuclear Family Records Bandcamp. Out now.
I've always known Billy Club as you four guys, but I know you've had a few member changes. So can you just take us through the timeline?
So, originally it was James Kosis, me, and the original guitarist was Rod, and we didn't really have a singer. And then James Kosis split, and Glenn started playing drums.
You originally were the bassist. That needs to be said.
Right. So the original guitar player was Rod. I played bass, and Glenn joined the fold. And then we didn't have a singer. Tried out a couple of people. It didn't really work out. And then one day that me and the original guitar player Rod were in the Bronx at Orchard Beach, and we were chilling, just like drinking Valentine and smoking blunts on the boardwalk. And like the beach there is like, it's hood as fuck, bro. But like you could like, just like, we were just walking down the fucking boardwalk, smoking a blunt in broad daylight, and we ran into Martin. So Martin was there with like his family having like a party, because Dominican, right? So, having a Dominican party at the beach there. And so we were like, yeah, he was like, what are you guys up to? We were like, we're chilling. We got this band, but we don't have a singer. And he was like, well, I sing. And we were like, yeah, but we're looking for somebody that, sings half Spanish, half in English. And he was like, well, I could do that. And then we were like, all right, why don't you try out? And then we finished smoking a blunt with him. He had to hide it though. He didn't want nobody to see that he was smoking. and then he tried out, and then we were like, oh yeah, this works. So we started like, writing songs. Eventually, Rod disappeared again, and he didn't want to be in a hardcore band no more. So I took over playing guitar. And then we got this dude that used to play in the metal bands from the high school that we grew up in, named Matt Stevens. He played in the metal band called Cremation. And he played, what was that other band he played in, bro?
Necropolis. No.
Yes.
Yeah,
Necropolis. No. Maybe. I don't know. And then we just started playing shows. Like, we only played, one show with Rod, right? Or two?
There's a few. We played one without him, which James Kosas played bass. And you played guitar.
Oh, that's right.
Narco.
Yeah.
You can see that.
Glenn's got a good memory, man.
Yeah, I'm that guy.
I'm not that guy.
No, you did a good job. You did a good job.
I mean, we started. Our first show was May '96. Rob was in the band until fall of '97 when we got Stevens. And then
but we didn't play many shows, right? What did we play?
Well, no, we played. I mean, it was only like a few shows, but and then Stevens was with us until what? Gary joined in 2001. First show was June. That was the Superheroes at Leisure CD release party that we didn't have CDs for.
Yeah. Late 2000. Well, like I mentioned before, I was friends with Martin and Glenn from early on, like the old Bond Street days. I met Malone the second Billy Club show. I wasn't at the first Billy Club show. The second show you guys played, I think, was the Pyramid Basement show. And that was when I first met Malone. And then we were all friends. I was playing with 5 Minute Major, and I ended up filling in for Billy Club. It was October 2000. It was actually my birthday. Stevens couldn't play a show, and I was like, well, I could fill in for you. And then when we practiced, things kind of came together, and they weren't happy with Matt anyway. And it got to the point they said, listen, we're booting Matt one way or another. So if you want the spot, we'd like to have you. If not, then, do your thing. So I was still with 5 Minute Major, and things were starting to not go well within that band. So I decided, well, fuck it. I told Glenn, I was like, well, let's do it. And Matt was out. I was in. June 2001 was the first show that we played together at Wetlands with, what was that, E-Town, I think?
Yeah, it was at E-Town show.
Wow.
E-Town is
Sworn Enemy.
Full Blown and 36 Deadly Fists.
Yeah. And it was a record release show for Superheroes, but we didn't have the CDs. And then from there, we just started playing more and doing more and writing new music, and it just took off from there.
So as a quick bonus question for the rest of you, so Gary mentioned that it was his birthday. Which date was that show?
Oh, October 13th, 2000.
Oh shit, I wouldn't know any of these fuckers' birthdays.
So let's talk about your first ever release. That was in 1996, right?
Yes.
I was listening to it the other day, and it's got that proper 90s raw sound that I miss, man. Can you remember recording that? Was that like an 8-track or?
Yeah, it's 8-track, 8-at, single 8-at. We did it at NYU when I was going to school there. There was that one was not a class project. Our 7-inch was a class project, but the demo we just did, a couple friends on the side, and we had no idea what we were doing. And also we using only Yamaha NS10 speakers that don't have low end. No one told me that. So we were cranking the low end. I mean, that's why that thing's so bassy and like kind of muddy, because we thought
it sounds good, man.
Well, if you were listening to the digital release, I fixed it a little bit, if that's what you were listening to it the other day.
Yeah, I have, on Spotify.
We actually went back and remixed it. The first demo that we released at our first show, it was a bit more of a mess. And I think we remixed 2 of the songs, and that's what really is out there. I could be wrong about that.
And Malone was playing bass on that one, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Billy Club's Sandwich, his first show was Madball, 25 to Life, Indecision, Powerhouse, and I think it was AF, the first reunion.
Yep.
Is that correct?
My
days, man.
Same.
How did you get on the show?
Well, Tony, you want to take that one?
So at the time, my old man was working at a Harley dealership with Roger in White Plains, New York. And so me and Rod started I would always go visit my old man, like while he was at work and shit. And we started to drop by there. And my old man's like, yeah, this guy, I think he plays for a band that you know. And he's like, he takes us in the back and he's like, yeah, this is Roger. I'm like, yeah, I know who that is, you know? And like, I didn't really know Roger at the time, but like, so my father's introducing me to Roger Moret. So, you know, we just started kicking it and shit. And then, you know, we told him, you know, we had a band and whatnot, and, you know, what was going on. And then he was like, yo, when you guys want to play shows, let me know. And then, so it got hooked up and we got hooked the fuck up.
Yeah.
And show was dope. I mean, it was at Wetlands. It was sick.
Yeah, great start. But then we didn't get hooked up again.
How did the actual show go? Was it a good show for you guys?
We were the first band, so I mean, you know how those go.
Yeah.
It's like we have pictures. The pictures in the 7-inch. I mean, you look at the picture of that, and then you look at the video of AF playing. Two very different shows.
Yo, funny thing about that show is that Phil from Irate was in the crowd at that show and saw us play, and we didn't know him.
We had a similar thing, Waymar. I don't know if you know this, but there was a Machine Head played in like 1994, and Headbangers Ball did like a party after the show because it was Christmas, right? For years, I had this old VHS video of like me dancing to this Clawfinger tune. And years later, I'm watching it.
That one.
Yeah. No, it weren't that one, but yeah.
These guys have no clue what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, shit. You won't know who Clawfinger is.
Have you guys heard of a band called Clawfinger?
No.
All right.
That's an education for you guys for after this podcast.
Yeah.
It's basically a right on 90s Swedish rap metal band. Geez, you just got to watch it.
They had an anti-racist song called Nigger. And the chorus went, nigga. And they,
cancelled right away, cancelled.
It was actually an anti-racist song.
So we there's me dancing to this tune, like, and then years later I watched the video, I'm like, is that Ray? Shit, that's Nicky as well. It was fucking 3 or 4 years before I knew him. It was me, Ray, and Nicky dancing to this Clawfinger tune, man. It's fucking cool.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's fucking nuts.
But yeah, like 91, Tony and I were going to shows, and we know Gary was there, Martin was there, but we had no idea who they were. You know, I had like the Irate guys and EGH, you know, big shows.
Yeah.
We knew each other back then. But
Lewis, you're back, man. Lewis disappeared from the chat. Are you good, Lewis?
Lewis.
Is your connection good?
Connection should be all right, man. It's tripping out a little bit, but let's see what happens in it. But yeah, I literally just got into the conversation about Clawfinger, man.
Yeah, but also like the other lyrics are just brilliant. Like, tell me the truth, motherfucker. Tell me the truth, you sucker. Like golden rhymes, man.
Anyway, let's get back to it, man. So anyway, shortly after that, you released a 6-track EP. Is it Hold the Bologna? How do you pronounce it? Bologna? Is it Bologna?
Bologna.
No, it's baloney.
Oh, Bologna.
4 songs also.
Okay, something in Italian is spelled the same way. Just, I think, pronounced Bologna.
That's where baloney came from, was Bologna. And then, you know, it's kind of like bastardized U.S. Pronunciation of Italian words. Like, you know, it's like kind of how you say, like, you know, like Capicola is pronounced gabagool, you know, like, because it's not really pronounced that way, but in America, it's all bastardized. So, like, in America, they call it baloney.
Okay, gotcha. So who came up with that name? Because I'm sure there's a story behind it.
So because it was kind of like a play on words for the name was sandwich, and you put bologna on a sandwich. But, you know, when you say like some shit is bologna, it's like, it's bullshit. So we were like, yo, hold the bologna.
Yeah, that's a phrase. You say hold the, yeah, you're talking baloney. You're talking nonsense.
So let's talk about the release after that, which was most probably one of my favourite releases from you guys, which was the Superheroes at Leisure EP. Yeah. Well, and the thing that stands out...
Live tape, live CD.
Oh,
when I went there in 2000 with No Redeeming, that Pierre and all them got the live tape from me and we're listening to it. You know,
yes, that's right. I had that for a long time, and then you afterwards. You had it on a CDR, innit?
Oh, no, that point was the tape... Oh, no, maybe I did give him the CDR. It was originally a tape.
No, because I had it on CDR.
It came out on CDR in 2000. But I remember sleeping in this flat and waking up the next morning and hearing them listening to it in the morning. And I was like, uh-oh. And then they were all like, yo, that's rough, man. It's rough, man.
But I wanted to talk about the thing that stood out on that release was the artwork. I mean, the music was amazing, but the artwork as well was incredible, man.
Yeah, that's Catalina. He did everything except for Usual Suspects. He did.
Can you give us a bit of background on this guy?
Yeah, I've known him since 7th grade, but he went to high school with me and Tony. Well, sort of. He dropped out, went to rehab, but then managed to graduate with us on time after not going to high school for 2.5 years. But he's just like that. But he was a graffiti cat. I mean, he did 25 to Life, Keeping It Real logo. That's him. Coming Correct.
Oh, yeah.
He did a lot of art for In Effect. The last 4 issues or 5 issues of In Effect, he was the main guy. He's done stuff for a lot of bands: Breakdown, Cold Front, Irate, No Redeeming. But yeah, he did the layout of the Billy Club 7-inch. He did the cover of the demo. He did all that superhero stuff and chin music.
I can't watch Police Academy now without when that sample comes on. By the cavity. As soon as I watch the film and that comes on, I'm expecting the drums to go drums to kick in, man.
I still have my tapes. I used to collect samples all the time. I was watching movies. I would stop, rewind, and record things to cassettes.
But Gabby, that was your first time recording with the band, right?
No, I that was Matt Stevens, but I think there were issues with that recording, and that's part of why they were looking to replace him.
Yeah, are we allowed to talk about the issues?
Well, we did record 3 more songs that did not end up on that because of said issues.
Are you allowed to talk about what the issues
actually had recorded Marco Cabron, Justice Unknown, and Loose Lips, which still is yet to be released, which we made. Now we started playing again. We may try to record that again finally. But those songs, it was going to be a full-length Superheroes, but ended up being 6 songs that it was, yeah.
Yeah, but, I mean...
It was on tape. It was a pre-Pro Tools, so we couldn't fix anything. We'll just leave it at that.
Where did you guys record that then?
With AJ from Leeway, he produced it, and Noah from the Icemen engineered it on Astoria, Libre Digital, which at that time, a lot of your favorite records were done there. A lot more.
Oh, wow, man.
Queens bands.
Yeah, it was on Steinway, right? Yeah, Steinway.
If you go look at your credits for albums from around that time, you'll probably see it pop up a bunch. But that was the only time we recorded the 2-inch tape. That was exciting for me, and working with AJ, we were obviously all big fans. And he actually, the Peter Wilson, the Brujeria cover, he does all that lead guitar, wah-wah craziness at the end. That was all him. It's like the end, chun, 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 chun. For whatever reason, the noise pedal wasn't cutting the noise out. And so it was crazy, all his feedback. So he was like, yo, give me the guitar. Actually, Tony recorded that whole record with AJ's guitar.
Yeah, I used AJ's Black Les Paul to record that. I remember we were fucking around and I was doing tracking guitars, and he comes in, he was like, "You're a good hardcore rhythm guitar player." And I was like, "Oh my fucking God." Oh my fucking God. AJ just told me I was a pretty good fucking rhythm guitar player for a hardcore band. I was like, I'm going to hang it up now.
So it said, you don't have any leads? There's no leads for this, which is why Chin Music has some crazy random leads here and there, because we were like, well, we got to do something and just spice this up, the recordings.
Chin Music, now you're talking about it, that was released in 2004. I read that on that release, you've done an invasion tour with Sworn Enemy, EGH, and R8 of Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, yeah.
Puerto Rico! Fucking hell, man. What was that like?
One of the best times ever, man. The only time the 4 bands got to go anywhere together. I guess Irate and EGH met up in Europe once for a couple days, but nobody's invited us all to go anywhere together. But that was a great time. That was the first time we left the country as a band. The first time Gary, I think, flew since he was 13, right?
Oh, is it?
Something like that. Yeah, I hadn't been on a plane since probably, I think I was 16. One of the last times I went to Florida, and then I hadn't been on a plane since. So it'd been over 10 years. And we took off and then immediately turned around and landed again.
The plane was empty, and we're hanging out with the stewardess, who actually was a Harley guy. And we're talking, he gets a phone call. We're sitting across from him, they had the backward seats for the stewardesses. And he's flight attendant, whatever. And he's gets a phone call, and he's just we're landing. There's smoke in the avionics or whatever. And we had to turn around and land. What happened? And we had a 4-hour delay. And like this dude's all bugging out. He hadn't flown, in 15 years or whatever.
Yeah, I was bugging out. I just thought it was funny. It's like, yeah, finally, after all these years, I'm on a plane again, and immediately we're turning around and landing. And then we spent that 4 hours in the bar.
Of course.
and we finally got down to Puerto Rico at like 3 a.m. or something. All the guys from the other bands were waiting for us.
Waiting for us with blunts and 40s at the hotel.
Oh, fucking hell.
Nice.
Yeah, the Notel Motel.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
At the fuck shack. They put us up in literally an hourly fuck hotel. There's video.
Oh, really?
You see the video. I just posted it a couple weeks ago. There's video of that tour. But everybody, and Sub-Zero stayed there when they were on tour and some other bands. But it was literally like a set of garages. You had a garage so you could hide your car, and you walked right into the room.
Yeah, so your wife wouldn't see your car while you're there with your,
So one enemy stayed at the promoter's house, but EGH, Irate, and Billy Club all stayed in this fuck shack. That was interesting. Mirrors on the ceiling. Me and Tony laying in bed, like, yeah, great. We got this mirrored ceiling.
nothing but porn.
Yeah, only porn on TV.
And it's great. If you look at the YouTube video, who is it? Nick Irate gives a tour of one of the rooms.
Yeah, at the end.
And you walk in, and it's just a little room with like a little disco ball on the ceiling and a boombox and a chair for like lap dances.
Everyone but us. Straight from the heart of London.
Going back to the bands that you went out there with, Sworn Enemy, EGH and Irate, I've noticed that you guys have got a tight bond. Kind of reminds me of what we've got in London with the LBU, where we've got a bunch of friends, a collective, and we're all kind of tight together. Like, how did that relationship come about?
All those bands getting together was Castle Heights. All of us just there every week and just hanging out and having the click. The Five Fingers of Death with Eye to Eye also.
Those ties go back to Bond Street because, like I knew Glenn and Martin from back then, but we all knew Rob EGH from back then as well. And, a couple of the other guys, because Chris B, before I knew Chris B, I knew his brother who was in Cold Front, Nick. And I used to work with his sister also. So there were a lot of ties that all went back years that tied all of that together. And then everything came together with the whole Castle Heights scene and all those bands all playing together. Eye to Eye was from up north a bit, but they would come down and all, they play with a lot of the same bands, and that's how we all knew each other.
What were like the main spots to play in New York?
Well, Wetlands closed with 9/11. So up, late 90s, you had Wetlands, Castle Heights, CBGB's.
You had Coney Island High for a while.
That's true, and Coney.
Bond Street was a bit earlier.
The Giuliani years were tough for shows in the city. So a spot would pop open for a little while, but spots didn't remain. And so Castle Heights was in an outer borough and it wasn't in Manhattan. So it was able to survive for a longer time. But it was, Manhattan was dead for a long time. So.
Yeah, everything in Manhattan pretty much would dry up over time. I mean, I was involved in some conversation on Facebook. I think Coney Island High was only open for 4 years or something like that. And that was a long time for some of these places in Manhattan.
Wow.
I mean, CBGB's was the longest. And Wetlands went for a good long while. But, Bond Street was only for a couple of years. There were other places that were around for even a shorter time, like the Underworld and places like that. Over time, Castle Heights was the one that lasted longer because it was out in Queens, like Malone said, and it didn't. All the Manhattan places were getting closed to turn it into something else. Like Coney Island High at one point was a Burger King or something.
Yeah, not the sushi spot. Wetlands is a high-end Swedish furniture store or something. Robert De Niro owns that building.
That's funny because we got a few venues in London like that. We had a place called The Swan, which I think is Domino's Pizza now.
Wow.
And we had a place called The Verge in Camden, which is a restaurant or some shit like that. But it's just...
Yeah, a lot of places like that because the Continental turned into a straight-up bar because live music wasn't cutting it, and now that whole block is torn down.
Knocked that whole building down a couple months ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was also very hard for places that booked hardcore because, like, you know, venues would go through times like, well, like the Pyramid was still there, but they didn't book hardcore for 6 or 7 years or, you know, shit like that. Or like hardcore shows would be booked at the Pyramid for a couple of years and then they would stop. And then, you know, it was way too violent and there was too many fights and it was too much of a risk. So, and it became more, you know, it was a lot easier to catch a lawsuit. Like everybody became lawsuit happy. So they didn't want, because that, you know, that happened with other kind of venues too. Because there used to be something called the Bronx Underground. And they used to do shows in a church. And they ended up getting sued. And eventually the whole thing folded up because some 13-year-old kid, you know, got hurt. Like he got his arm broken or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but you know, that kind of stuff was what everybody was worried about, especially in Manhattan, where it's already so hard financially to keep a place going.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
the Bronx. You mentioned the Bronx Underground. I mean, that was a really cool fucking thing. I mean, there was. You know, it was just a group of kids that wanted to book shows, and they would put shows together. It would be like us and a ska band and like, you know, like a doom metal band or some shit.
And like a pop punk band.
And like a rock band. But it
was all for kids too. Like more all ages, teenagers.
Yeah, it was just all ages.
It was a lot of neighborhood kids.
Right. But they would be packed out. I mean, and no one would leave no matter what band was playing. It was a really cool scene for the time. Like, everybody stayed for every band. It wasn't like you had these elitists that just like, oh, I don't like this band. I'm going outside and I'm not going to watch them. All those kids stayed inside for every band and they danced their asses off, whether it was ska or rock or us.
Yeah.
It was dope.
And who was going to do that at a regular, like, hardcore show? A lot of these people, if they don't know the band, they're just hanging out outside.
They didn't want us to play it first. They wanted us to use a fake name.
Well, they were nervous about it, and it was for those exact reasons. And the funny thing is that it wasn't a hardcore band that the kid got hurt. I think it might have been like a pop punk band. I don't really remember. But they were worried about it. But over time, you know, they were having other bands that had similar crowds. And, you know, I used to work security for them. And I said to them at one point, I was like, listen, you got these other guys coming through. It's not any worse than what we're doing. So, and they were like, you know what, you're right. And then we played for them a couple of times.
What's the worst injury you've seen at a Billy Club show sandwich? Billy Club sandwich show, shall I say? What's the worst injury you've seen at a Billy Club sandwich show?
Our show specifically.
Yeah, is there anything that stands out?
What was well, that kid got knocked out bad at Brooklyn Bazaar, right?
That girl?
Yeah.
Right, that girl.
That's right.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, she got a little bit more than knocked out. She needed like reconstructive surgery on her face.
Don't wish that on no one, man.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like I don't. It wasn't done on purpose. And she's in the scene and she's cool and she didn't. You know, she wasn't like
she wasn't trying to sue the venue or anything like that.
Right, but like she got pretty severely hurt, and look, people like us need a release, right? And you know, I mean, I want it to be as violent as humanly possible without people being targeted or hurt severely. You know, with that being said, that was a terrible thing. I mean, there's been other things that happened too, like the last show at Castle, John the doorman, who was one of the bouncers there, got a lacerated spleen and like damage to his internal organs. You don't ever want that shit to happen like that. You know, like somebody gets knocked out and they wake up. That's one thing. I mean, sure, that's happened to all of us, right? I mean, I've been knocked the fuck out. But to have severe injuries where, you know, they're serious detriment to your health is messed up. I mean, but most of the time, you know, broken noses, missing teeth, shit like that.
Standard stuff, right?
Hardcore shit, right?
Yeah. So what was Billy Club Sandwich's first time in Europe?
2004.
Yeah, later 2004. We went to Puerto Rico early in the year, and then in the fall we went to Europe for the first time.
this is when I first met all of you guys, I think, because I was in 50 Caliber at the time.
Right.
We played.
We definitely played the Underworld in London.
2004, we headlined, and yeah, was it 50 Caliber? Or was it
Blades of Unity?
50 Caliber was on a bunch of those shows.
Yeah. We played the Field of Hate Festival in Germany.
That's the first.
Yep.
Yep.
We played. Yeah.
Yo, Steve, that was a fun ass tour, Steve. You can't front. That shit was dope.
Who was on that tour then? What, 50 Caliber won the tour?
I think we played a couple of the shows.
It was definitely a couple of the shows. I don't think.
Yeah, you guys played I think you played the first leg.
If I remember rightly, I think we did 2 weekends. So we did like the first weekend, and then we all went back to work, and then we come and did the second weekend. I think it was something like that.
Well,
we played London. We played the Underworld in the middle of that tour, which was fucking difficult because we had to sneak in and then sneak out again.
Right, because we played Wales on the Monday.
The Cardiff, the Newport, Wales. We played TJ's.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Yeah, TJ.
Yeah, we played TJ's in Newport.
Oh yeah.
That was a great time.
Yeah.
Oh, that shit was getting defenestrated out of that window.
But wait, was 50 Caliber on that show?
Maybe I don't.
Or was Knuckle Dust on that show?
It was Knuckle Dust. That's the famous show where the fight kicked off. Yeah.
We was on that show. It was us. I played 2 sets that day. Yeah, that's when Pete was kicking the fuck out of some guy or something.
You did the Shattered Realm cover. I do remember that.
Yes. Beatdown Fury played the Filled with Hate Fest also.
Yeah,
right?
We did. Yeah.
Because you guys did the Irate song and we all went out on the floor.
Yeah.
The infamous set when before Justice Unknown, Martin said, Germany, you have a long reputation of being racist.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And then you can hear a pin drop in the place. You can hear a pin drop in the place, and then all of a sudden Martin's like, oh, but we've been treated very well here. And then a polite clap, like everybody's like, oh, okay. we didn't know where he was going with this.
I think what he said was, but since we've been here, we've been treated all unity. Or something.
But it got real quiet, real fast.
What happened to Martin? What happened to Martin? Where's Martin?
Yeah, Martin's disappeared off the pod. What's the differences between touring America and touring Europe?
America sucks.
Why does America suck?
We get guarantees now, but you don't get paid. In Europe, you get fed. You even get water at least. You get beers, place to stay half the time. You get none of that here at all.
Yeah, you're lucky if you
like that here.
You're lucky if you can get anything in America, especially on like we were talking about the show in Wales. Like that was a Monday night, and we still had over 100 people in America. Probably not on a Monday night.
No, yeah.
Because nobody cares. Nobody's just that interested. And it's probably going to be worse once things open up again after all this virus nonsense. It's going to be even worse.
When Knuckle Dust came, and it was the same thing. Like Backfire wanted to get hooked up with Billy Club or No Redeeming, and it's like we can't give you any guarantees over here. It's like you want to come play.
I remember we played that show. It was us. Who was it in Brooklyn?
Yeah,
it's Knuckle Dust, Billy Club Sandwich. Everybody gets a irate.
Yeah,
I think there was like 20 people there. 20 people there.
Lineup, right? Big show. Yeah, there was like 40 people there.
Yeah. But still, that for me was like one of my favorite shows, man. Like, because all these, I was a big fan of all your bands, all them bands on that bill. Yeah. So for me, I was like, this is amazing. Do you know?
Wait, Mark. Was that? Remember that show at Manitoba's where I just surprised you lot and just walked in? Was that was like Dominique and Day Parade and.
Yeah.
With us.
Yeah.
We made them play. We're like, you're all here. Like, just play.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was in the MySpace days, and I think I was talking to Pierre, and he's like, "No, we just want to come chill." I'm like, "You guys got to play. God damn it, you're playing."
You know what? I'll big up to you, Glenn and Gary for that, because I remember you guys picked us up and you looked after us and you drove us from New York.
Oh yeah, down to Baltimore.
There was 9 of us in my mother's minivan, and with Pierre laying on the floor between the 2 seats, like just looking up at us.
Yeah. I remember I had this. This is the days when you used to carry CDs, and I had a bunch of like R&B CDs. And I remember Glenn found them because I left them in his mum's car, and you were just roasting me, saying, "What's all this fucking shit?" going through my CD collection, going, "What's all this pop boy band shit?"
Where did you play in? Where did you play in Baltimore, Weimar?
Sidebar.
It was a sidebar.
Who was it with? It was Stout and someone else.
And I think, was it GFY or Losers Sometimes Wins and Wisdom in Chains? Was that?
No, Wisdom in Chains didn't play. They were with, they came, but they never played, man. So let's talk about your next release anyway, man. Usual Suspects. That was in 2008, taken from one of my favourite films. And that was released on Dead City Records, right?
Yep.
Big John.
You guys are good friends with John Franco. I want to give a little shout out to him from Awkward Thought.
Yes, definitely big shout out to John Franco.
Big shout out.
Let's talk about him, man. How do you guys meet up with John?
Rock and Rex record store in Yonkers back in the day. Used to work there. And me and every Monday we would go with another friend of ours, Monday Fun Day. We would go down to Rock and Rex. When I was doing Crucial Chaos, he would come. He was there like every Thursday. He would bring records up and hang out. But yeah, I mean, he's been on almost every tour we've ever done. He's been with us and is the man.
Well, hold on. Go back. The original 7-inch.
Yes. The 7-inch
was
No Post Records was him.
No Post Records. That was John Franco before Dead City. So John put out the first Billy Club 7-inch.
He always reaches out to me by email to say how you guys doing, and he's a fucking really good guy. Me and Lewis, we basically grew up in a place called Beckton, and I've told this story a few times, but there was a church called St. Mark's Church in Beckton. That's where Knuckle Dust formed. John Franco came down to that church, and
nice.
that was, I think, the first time I actually met him in person, man. And ever since then, he's been a really good friend, man. Really good guy. Do you know what I mean?
Was he there?
I know he loves you guys, man, so much, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Was he
that dude's like family, you know? I mean, like, that dude, like, I don't know where Billy Club will be without John Franco, you know? That guy, he's part of Billy Club.
Yeah, he's done so much for us, just between the touring stuff and also just helping us out as far as handling a lot of business stuff for us.
Does all of our
merchandise and whatnot. Yeah, he's always mailing stuff out, fulfilling merch orders and stuff like that. He runs the online store, and then most of these trips that we've taken, he didn't go with us to Puerto Rico, but Europe he went with us. He went with us to Japan also. He's taking care of a lot of that stuff for us, so we really appreciate everything he's done.
He helps set the tours up for us, and he's just the lunatic. We love him for that. But
where the floor is yours, you can say right now. Send a little message to him.
John, we love you, man, and I'm sorry that your life is so miserable right now because he's working. He's not working from home, and his job is crazy. It's way harder than it was when he was working in the office. Like, he's chained to a computer every day and worried about getting fired because they laid off a lot of people, so he's got more work to do to make up for it. It's been crazy for him. And they also were just implementing a new system with their computers, and like he's had to train people. It's like been nuts, man.
Well, that and also he would go and travel and go sell merch for other bands, and now there's no shows. So he's losing, he's losing a lot of money with that right now because normally he would be out with Sheer Terror or whoever else, or Murphy's Law, selling merch. And, now it looks like most of the year is shot when it comes to that. We don't know when there's going to be shows again.
That's a good dude, man. But going back to that Usual Suspects album, you released a video for Bottom of a Barrel. I fucking love that video, man. So I'm sure that everyone listening to his podcast has seen the video. But if you haven't, go onto YouTube and just search Bottom of a Barrel Billy Club Sandwich. But basically, his idea was to film that. He came up with a concept.
I mean, I shot it, directed it, and edited it. But the idea is, it followed the lyrics. I think we all were like, what are we going to do for a video? We want to just do a live video. And like, that's not our most popular song, especially over the years. We don't really play it. But
oh, really?
Yeah, we haven't been playing it.
We've had some, sometimes there's just not as reaction.
Yeah.
That was in Martin's actual office. That was where he was working at the time. We just shot it on the weekend.
And it was cool for you to go in and do it?
Well, his boss was a good friend of his and still is.
Right, okay.
But his coworkers did get nervous when they saw the video.
Did they?
that song was a song that kind of had more of a clear story to it. So when we did the video, it just went right along with the story, because the story is really about somebody that's, working that day-to-day grind and then finally just snap. So it really lent itself to us doing the video because the concept was already there. It was just a matter of executing it on camera.
Yeah.
And Glenn, like Glenn said, he filmed it all, put it all together, and we spent the day just putting it together and filming.
Yeah, one long day. We had to do we had to do a reshoot for a couple of shots, but yeah, one long day.
So Glenn, you do everything, man. You record, you do video editing. Is that something you've done before, or you just learned it?
Well, I went to film school. Well, I went to NYU.
I never knew that.
The chaos stuff. I was actually technically in film school, but I did all audio since being a drummer and music. That's what got me engineering. But I did learn to edit the old school way, tape to tape there.
Are you still working in the studio at the moment? Are you still doing
Not at the moment. I mean, I'm doing a little bit of work at home, but I need people to come here to record. As far as legit studio, like I do drums in a studio up in Westchester and do most stuff in my house now. The last studio I really worked at was Jimmy from Maximum Penalty, his old studio. And then I was at another studio after that in Westchester, but I've been trying to find a way back into somewhere in Brooklyn or downtown. Would like to get back to doing hip hop again. I mean, I used to work with a lot of big names, but that was a long time ago.
Glenn, did you do the NRSV video, all their stuff as well?
Most of that was Scott, the old bass player. I shot the Super Fun Time Party Girl video, but he edited that. And I did, if you've seen the one for You Are Here Because You Are Drunk, that's in Japan.
Okay, yeah.
But most of the video, the DVD and all that was actually Scott Cumbo. That was like how he learned. He is a video editor. He works for Bellator, like the MMA fighting stuff. But he learned making the No Redeeming DVD is how he learned to edit.
Well, he shot everything for
that's true.
The Japan Suspects DVD too.
Yeah, he was over there with us for a couple of days and shot.
Yeah,
and he edited it.
Yeah,
he put that together. Yeah, he put our DVD together.
Yeah,
as well.
You know what? You mentioned Japan. You guys toured Japan. What was that like?
You guys got to go there. You got to go there, Wema. You got to go there.
Yeah, man. Really. You know what? That's one of the places that I would love to go. We had a band. Our last band that we interviewed on this podcast was a band called Split Knuckle. They're a bit younger than us, but they, Split Knuckle? Don't know if you heard of them.
Yeah.
Okay. They toured Japan, I think, last year.
Yeah,
am I right?
Yeah, last year.
And they said it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. Like, how was it for you guys? How is it different from anywhere else?
They go crazy, man. They love it. I mean, they had a surprise welcoming party for us at this restaurant we had no idea about, We just thought we were going to dinner,
really?
and there was like 25 kids, like, Billy Cloud.
I mean, and that was crazy. That was crazy because we walk into the place and they're all wearing like everybody gets hurt, irate, stout T-shirts, and we're just like, we just walk right into that, and it's like, wow, obviously they know us and our friends and love what we do, and that was cool.
It's weird. It's weird also because like there's no real like delineation between scenes. Like we were playing and there was like Japanese pop artists hanging out with us on stage and shit. Like,
oh shit, yeah, that girl Yappy.
Yeah, and like, so there's no like, they were like, oh yeah, check this out. We walk into 7-Eleven and they like grab like a real magazine off the 7-Eleven thing and flip open to an interview with us in it that we had done. We're like, whoa.
Yeah, tech, hip hop.
It's not like, there's not like, it's not like that the hardcore scene is like underground. It's like, it's like another scene. There's just all the scenes are kind of like together,
interconnected in a way.
Yeah, interconnected and shit. It was really cool. I mean,
playing techno in between the bands, DJs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like,
that's different.
Yeah, Martin freestyling.
Oh yeah, that's a DVD. You see that when he's freestyling.
Martin just walks up and like somehow communicates to the guy that he wants the mic. The guy gives him the mic and they're playing this beat. Martin just starts freestyling over the beat. It was like it was a lot of fun. I love Japan. That was awesome.
And that was at like 5 a.m. or something because the shows would go all night.
Because the train would close. Since the train closed, the party went until 5 a.m. That was crazy. We played it.
We didn't play it until like 3
in the morning. Then Sam played it like 4.
Oh, yeah. Wow, man. That's insane.
Yeah.
Would you say
that was in Osaka?
How many shows did you do out there?
Just 4.
Just 4. And would you say it's the best place you've ever played?
Oh, yeah.
Better than TJ's in Newport.
Hey, man, the Underworld is up there as well, though.
You ain't got to say that just because we're sitting there.
I played there 4 times between both bands, so, that's one of my favorite spots.
Check out the new podcast from Essex, Then and Now, featuring interviews with the Deaf Skulls, Point Down, Understand, and Special Move, with much, much more to follow. Check out their Facebook page to find out more.
But let's jump forward, man, to 2019. Because you had a bit of a break in it around 2010, is it?
10 to 16, yeah, 6 years old.
10 to 16. Initially, I thought you guys were broken up, man, but why so long?
So, before 2010, the years leading up to 2010, I had a progressive drug addiction going on, and came to a head 2010. We broke up. Not really broke up. It wasn't like official, but we just stopped playing. And, I was pretty much on a downward spiral in my life. Pretty much everything that was going on in my life got affected by that. Obviously the band but just my personal life was, I was living out of a car. I had no job, etc. I was pretty hardcore addicted to opiates. So I fucked up a lot, and I did a lot of, things that fucking friends don't do to each other. There was a pretty bad wind up between me and the rest of the band. So those guys didn't speak to me at all. So, it took a long time for me to, get into recovery and turn my life around. So I was battling some personal things, for that duration. Then even once I got sober, it wasn't like I immediately reached out to them to make amends and try to fix things. I was still trying to learn how to cope with some of the things that I had done. And so I continued to make mistakes. It wasn't just while I was an addict. It was also in a lot of things that I did and how, and then, it was the things that I did, but also in not reaching out and not trying to fix the things either. It took me a long time to kind of come to terms with what I did and then figure out how I would, gain the strength to face all that shit. And not just with them. I mean, in my personal life with my family members and just a lot of people. So there was like this whole thing going on. And to their credit, I mean, I never once doubted that those guys really loved me, because even through all of that shit and me like canceling shows and not being reliable and lying through my teeth about what I was doing and all that shit, they never aired me out or publicly or said anything about me to anyone or what I was doing or what I was going through. And so, that is something that I'm very grateful for to this day. I mean, I don't know if everybody would do that. And I don't even know that if I deserved that, but it's what happened. It's the way that it is. And so there was a very long break, and I'll take full responsibility for what happened before, during, and after the entire thing.
No, I mean, thanks for sharing that. I mean, none of us in life are perfect, and we make mistakes. But I think the first thing you do when you make a mistake is you got to look at yourself, and I can see that you've done that, man. So I commend you on that, man. Like, what was that period like for you, Glenn and Gary?
To tell my side of it, I mean, Tony and I, again, we've been best friends going back to 10th grade, 1990, 91. And when all this went down, like, none of us really knew how bad it was. We knew that he was taking pills here and there. Like on tour, we would take a pill. When you're on tour, after a few nights, your back's hurting. Like, oh, let me get one. We had no idea it had gotten to that point, you know? And then when it went down, you know, besides being pissed and whatever, like we tried to help, but then Tony, he, you know, stopped responding. You know, he was off doing his thing, doing what he needed to do. So we kind of just like left it alone. You know, it was like, well, this guy's not returning my calls. What am I supposed to do? We actually didn't even speak for like 2.5 years, you know, to get crazy after being, you know, good friends for 20 years about at that point. And then Tony's grandfather passed away. It was in 2015, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I was good friends with his family going back to 10th grade, you know? So, like, I went to the funeral just, you know, if anything, it was really more to support his mother and his uncle and his brother. And, you know, I was there. And as Tony had put it that night, he was like, it's not like I'm going to ignore you. Like, you're here. And I appreciate that a lot. So we finally spoke. And I would say we still took it slow. I don't think, you know, it wasn't like, you know, let's do the band now then.
Well, it was funny that night. It was funny because I said, what's up to him? And, you know, we talked for a second. And then I said, I want to talk to you. And I remember Glenn going, is this really the time and the place to do this? And I said to him, I don't know, but this is the time and the place that I got.
I wasn't expecting to speak to Tony at it. I was just there to pay my respects and figured, you know, you know, it's your family. You're in the middle of all this. You got all kinds of people to deal with, like to take up your time for an hour to talk about our problems. I didn't think of the time, but we did it. I can't remember how long it was till I finally got Gary to talk to Tony again, but Martin was still in touch with you more or less, I'd say, throughout those 6 years.
Yeah, Martin had kept in touch with me the whole time, although obviously he was, you know, it was a difficult and a strained relationship because Martin was upset, you know, he lost a really good friend and he didn't understand, you know, what was going on and why I did the things I did and shit like that. But he kept in touch with me, you know, throughout. Whereas like I didn't speak to Muttley or Glenn for 2.5 years. And maybe more. I don't know. Muttley, how long was it? I don't know.
It was quite a while. I mean, just, you know, from my perspective, we had issues within the band for at least like a year or two leading into this. And I was really frustrated. I was having a lot of problems getting answers on certain things, trying to do stuff. And everything really hit the wall that summer. We had a bunch of shows booked and ended up having to cancel a bunch of shows.
Tony had to get surgery. I mean, part of it was your shoulder. This guy had heard it, you know, torn ligament in the 90s and ignored it for 13 years. And it got to the point where he had to get surgery. It was like an emergency. They were like, don't pick up a gallon of milk, don't play guitar. So that's what killed those shows. And then that led into, you have this addiction that we didn't know about.
Well, it went from having to cancel 1 or 2 shows to having to cancel the whole summer because it got to the point where, you know, at first Malone disappeared and we had to cancel 1 show, and then he came clean to us about what was going on. And at that point, everything just hit a complete stop. We were like, okay, this band right now is on pause. We're not doing anything. And we went through ups and downs after that, just on a personal level, because he asked us for support. But then, you know, we were in touch, and then suddenly he wasn't returning anybody's calls, and it got weird, and it went through this up and down for a couple of years, where at one point he and I had a long conversation and everything was good, but then all of a sudden he just stopped returning everybody's calls. And you know, and like I said, some of those issues were bubbling before all of this happened. And then it was just frustration. And like, we just went and did our own thing. And we were like, he's going to do his thing. And as you know, after what Glenn was talking about with the funeral and stuff like that, eventually Malone reached out and wanted to have a sit down with all of us. You know, an underlying thing there was that it was going to be the 20-year anniversary of the band. This was 2016. The band played their first show in 1996. So it was the whole idea of, okay, it's 20 years. Now is the time, like maybe we should try to work this out as friends, because we were all friends, like I said, you know, with the history that we all had with these guys knowing each other from high school and me knowing Martin and Glenn from early on. Let's try to fix this thing. Let's sit down and talk and see what we can do here. And if we're able to get it to the point where we can play a show to do this 20-year thing, that's cool. Because we said, listen, we can play the show, but before we do anything as a band, let's do this as friends, as longtime friends. Let's see if we can get this together and try to get somewhere with fixing that. And then if we play a show, that's cool. And that's what happened. We ended up playing the Black and Blue Bowl. We got a great reaction. It was a really good show. And then after that, we were like, maybe we could do a couple more shows and see where it goes.
I think that on both sides, there was people talking to me, and there was people talking to Glenn, there was people talking to Muttley, like, yo, why don't you guys just get together and play a show? And I was trying to tell people, I was like, I have to figure out if we could just all be in the same room, if we could even be friends again. I don't know if the damage I did is too much, right? Because something I learned, going through all this is that I did shit to people. I didn't get everybody back. Not everybody's cool with me. Some of the shit I did, people were able to say, all right, that's cool. I understand, but I don't want no part of you. So, a lot of people were like, oh, Billy Club should play. Billy Club should play. Why don't you get together? Why don't you guys play? And I was like, why don't we try to be in the same room with each other first? And look, it's something I think that we all wanted, but wanting something and the logistics of actually making it happen in a positive way, those are completely different planets. So I remember the year before we got together, Cousin Joe texts me and he's like, yo, what's up with you guys? Why don't you guys play some shows? And I was like, yo, dude, we got to talk first. I haven't even spoken to Muttley or Glenn in years. So he says to me, he goes, hey, let me ask you something. I said, yeah, what's up? He goes, did you kill anybody? I said, no. He goes, then you could fix it. And I was like, huh. All right. I'm listening. And, but it was a bunch of conversations like that I had with other people that were outside that maybe could have a better idea because they weren't sitting in it. But, we had a talk that day we all met at Glenn's house. That was the first time we were all in the same room together since 5 years earlier or some shit.
Yeah.
Well, little Greg's memorial thing, I guess.
That's true, but that was a whole other things. Things were not good at that point.
No.
Yeah.
When we played without.
Yeah, you done a little Greg Fest. That's right, isn't it? In 2011, wasn't it?
Yeah. That's what we're talking about because that we did that with a different lineup. We had always been asked and. The Greg thing hit us all pretty hard, and we decided to do something. We didn't know if we'd be able to pull it off.
But we brought back Matt Stevens. That's how.
Right. Matt played bass. I played guitar. And obviously there were issues with Matt, and that's why Matt wasn't in the band. So we weren't sure if we were even able to pull it off. So that's part of why it was not announced. It was a big secret.
We didn't want there to be any pressure on it that like, oh, Billy Club's coming back and playing because it might have been a mess.
Yeah.
Right, because we practiced a couple of times, and honestly, we weren't sure if we were going to pull it off, and we did. And at that point, we weren't on speaking terms with Malone, but Malone shows up, and it was an awkward situation. And at different points, a couple of us had conversations with him about it, and my conversation with him was not, particularly nice, but it was a couple of years before we finally started speaking again.
Yeah, I mean, at that time, so when Little Greg Fest happened, it was September 2012. Mm-hmm. I had gone to rehab in March of 2012, and I had gotten out in August. So I was away for like 6 months. And I went to the show pretty much against all recommendation from everyone. Everyone was like, you're not sober long enough. You don't know what to do. You're not going to know what to say to any of those guys. You don't know what you're doing. You should not go there. And, you know, I've not had a particularly great reputation for listening to fucking people and their recommendations. You know, I mean, let's just be, you know, I don't know. I don't have the best, I don't take direction well. But so I went anyway, and it was a fucking disaster. So my sponsor was like, yo, I don't want to tell you that you shouldn't talk to your friends, but like, because of how bad the rift was and the damage that I had done, he knew that I didn't have the toolkit to fix any of that shit. So he was like, yo, I don't want you to relapse. He's like, his number one thing was like, yo, I don't want you to go or, you know, start talking to Muttley or start talking to Glenn, and then emotionally it's too much for you to handle, and then you relapse. And I was like, I'll be fine. What the fuck, you know? And like, that was mistake number one, because like I said, it was pretty much a disaster. It was very awkward. The only good thing that actually happened was I got to dance to Billy Club songs, which I had obviously I was always playing them, so I never had got to do it. But every other portion of that was a disaster. And Glenn and I spoke like on the phone the next week or something, and that was a disaster. I didn't know what to do or say, and I fucked that all up. And it just kind of drove me deeper into a hole, and I had to do a lot of soul searching and figuring out shit. And you know, they were fucking more angry, you know, and I can't blame them.
I mean, my whole thing with it was I was hearing from people in California. I'm hearing from people in London. Oh, Malone's going to be at the show. And I'm like, I don't expect him to suddenly solve everything in a phone call, but a little heads up directly from him would have been a step in the right direction. You know, it's weird that I'm hearing from London that he's going to be at a show in Brooklyn.
Well, at full disclosure, we also kept it a secret because we didn't want him to try to be jumping in. You know, like that we thought if Tony knew ahead of time, then he'd be like, I got my guitar. What's up? No, I mean, right, wrong, or otherwise, that was our mentality going into it.
Full disclosure, I pawned all my guitars. I didn't even have a guitar at that time.
Oh, wow.
But then Rob EGH made you sing with us anyway. I mean, you can see it in the video. Rob's like, yo, get up here and like sing backing vocals or whatever. Yeah.
Malone, was you missing the band at that point?
Billy Club Sandwich is in my fucking soul, bro. So, I missed it. At the same time, sobriety is a selfish thing. It's an odd thing to say, but like, you know, so like, you know, even to this day, the first thing I put in front of my sobriety is the second thing I lose, right? So I had to protect that first and foremost. But I was so new to sobriety. When I partied from the time I was 16 till I was 37. I never tried to get clean or sober before. So this was all new to me. I was a baby in it. So, yeah, I missed it like hell. But, you know, it's the kind of thing, Weema, where it's like, if I ain't right, that can't be right. So I have to be right first. You know, I had to, like, figure it out. I mean, and that took me a long time. And look, you know, Mully and I have had some really, really in-depth conversations about this topic and shit. And like, and I don't want to sound like a cliche or something like that, but I think that, you know, if you do the work to fix it, you know, and you look at yourself and you are accountable for your actions, then you can change things. Like when we first sat down at that table in Glenn's house, I told all of them, I said, listen, I've sat here and I've told you all so many things. The only thing I can do is show you through my actions that I've changed. And if you could allow me that, that's one thing. Because I can't tell you I'm going to do something. I could just show you because I lied so much. Yeah, I'm getting clean. Yeah, no, I'm going to go to this. I'm going to do that. I'm not going to take pills. I said all that shit, but I never did it, you know? So, you know, I think that you show and prove, you know, more than you could just say. I mean, and I think that there's a lot that can be gleaned from this, from those guys' side. I mean, like forgiveness, right? Mm-hmm. If your friends are your friends, you know what I mean? Like you can make it past things if they've done you wrong, if they are accountable. if you've done things wrong to your friends, you can fix it if you're accountable.
And you know what strikes me about this as an outsider is that you did things in the right order as well. You changed through your actions. You worked on your friendships, because that's the most important thing. And then after that, the result that you got from working through it in the right way is that you got, we're all sitting here now doing this now. So It's like respect to everyone involved really on that.
It takes a big person to be able to know and see where they're going wrong. And obviously once you've got to that point and then you want to get everything done right and you just go through the motions and make sure you're getting it right, well, more power to you.
I mean, thank you for that. But I mean, I think it also, like, I look at directly at Muttley and Glenn. I mean, I think it takes a hell of a person to forgive. I mean, I held grudges for a fucking long time, like I know what it's like to be that guy.
You're talking to Grudgely over there.
I mean, I'm kind of known for holding grudges for quite a long time. And I said, listen, it came up at times, like I had conversations with people and they were like, well, what's up with Billy Club? And I said, I don't know, but I won't say never, because you never know what'll happen. But I said at this point in time, like, I don't think it'll happen with Malone. And if it doesn't happen with Malone, is it really Billy Club?
Mm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we did the one thing at the Little Greg show, and that was cool. And we had somebody, who had history with the band, and Matt Stevens, but we knew our limitations with Matt, and we weren't going to be a revolving door. Like for us, Martin said, it's like Voltron. It's like the four of us together have been together for a long time, and we're doing things the way we do it. And I don't think it would work if it's not the four of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine this without the four of us. I can't think of it. It doesn't register. I mean, Franco had reached out to me before we were even speaking, and he's like, these guys are like, yo, it's not really Billy Club if you're not involved. And I was like, I am flattered and humbled, because like that's the way I was thinking. But I gave up the right to have any decision about that when I fucked them dudes over. So, I mean, I'm very, very thankful that that's how they thought of me too. I mean, Billy Club is us. I can't, it's weird because we have had some lineup changes, but they've been so far apart. This lineup is what I envision as Billy Club.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, next year is 20 years since I joined the band.
Wow.
Yeah,
right.
Damn.
So, you look at it that way, it's crazy to think about. And listen, there were times, and you guys know this, any band will go through these problems. Sometimes you're going to have an issue, things come up, and it may be a thing of questioning whether you're still going to be able to do this, whether it's a medical thing or some other personal life thing. And we've had conversations like that before, where one person or another might not be able to keep doing this. And we've said, like, if it's not the four of us, it's not Billy Club.
Yeah.
It's just not going to work. That formula, the way it is, if you take somebody out, whether it's me or Martin, Glenn, Malone, it's not going to be the same.
There's like a chemistry.
Yeah.
Musically, that it's like when you have that core team of, in baseball or basketball, and once one of them is gone, it's not.
And we knew that early on, because we knew that, like I said, when I was filling in that one show in that first practice we had, we all just kind of looked at each other. Are we the best musicians? Not necessarily, but look at other bands. Slayer, are they perfect musicians? No, but you put the four of them together, or Metallica, or a lot of these other bands, it's just, there's that certain chemistry. And from that first practice we had, there was a certain chemistry that we had that just worked. And that's why we've been able to do all these things. And even after going through all this stuff and now doing this again, it's like, this is why we're still able to do it. Because we have that chemistry personally, but musically also.
That's amazing, man. That was my next question. Like, when did you turn the corner? When did you realize we can be a band again?
Well, there was a secret jam session that Glenn and I.
Well, yeah.
So Glenn and I got into the studio just to see, like, I hadn't played guitar with anybody in years. And we were like, well, let's just see before we even see if we can get Muttley and Martin involved and we could do it as a band. I was like, let's just see if we can do this. Yeah. And it went pretty well. And then we started talking about practicing.
Well, we got together and we spoke, and as friends, we're like, okay, there's possibilities. But yeah, then we practiced, and then I practiced with just Gary. After that, Gary? Or was it before? I practiced with just Tony, I practiced with just Gary, and then I was like, yo, I think we can make this come together.
I mean, Glenn, I think you and I had done that a couple of times over that stretch, just to get loose and just do something, because I mean, I was playing in another band for a little bit, but other than that, I really wasn't doing much musically. Glenn was still doing No Redeeming.
And then the Black and Blue Bowl, I mean, it popped. Like it was like, oh shit. And like, I know, leading up to it, we were like practicing and we were starting to get tight again and shit. And, but then it popped and we were on stage together. For me, I know that I was like, I had that feeling in my chest again, like, this is what it's about, right? Like Muttley said, like, we were like, all right, we did this show, like, maybe we can do some shit, and it just has kind of worked out. I mean, and we've gotten, really pretty blessed with all the different shit we've been able to play since then. I mean, we did Tsunami, we did This Is Hardcore, we did the Rumble, we did FYA.
Yeah, I mean, we one of the things we wanted to do is if we were going to do some more, we wanted to hit some spots that we had never done before, and we got to do a lot of that. And I mean, Eperfest was a big thing. Eperfest was awesome.
That was very cool, man.
Yeah, and even because that was the biggest crowd we've ever played to.
How many people was that?
We estimated at one point it might have been like 3,000 or 4,000.
How did that feel, man? After everything you've been through, you're on the stage in another country, few thousand people.
It was awesome, but you have to remember that Martin got hurt during the last song. He went to the hospital right after that. He had, it was kind of crazy. Like, we're all like riding high finally, and he had to go in an ambulance, and then Fat Jay took Malone to go pick him up like an hour or two later, and he ended up in the long run was all right, but he came back in a sling. They had to do like an MRI or whatever.
What happened?
He jumped off stage during Slow, and there was he jumped off stage at an arena stage where there was like a couple thousand people. It wasn't like jumping off stage at like at whatever Tsunami or something. And I mean, there was a massive pylon.
Somebody dove and landed on top.
Yeah, landed neck, like leg crashed right into his neck and shoulder, and he ended up like laying on the floor in the backstage like immediately after. I had no idea. I'm like cleaning up the drums, talking to somebody, and then Muttley's like, "Yo." Like Martin's like fucked up, man. Like he's in the back, like the EMTs are coming, or actually the Red Cross is coming, which were like, for us, Red Cross is only like for serious shit. Like we have EMTs, but over there, the Red Cross, I guess, is your responders.
That felt great. I mean, to be on stage and doing it again, and like in front of that many people, and to have a reaction like we did because the people went off.
The funny thing with that too is that the very next night we played in a little tiny place in France. That is probably the size of the room that I'm sitting in right now. So we go from like 4,000 people to like a box.
50 kids going bananas in a room.
Sometimes they're the best shows as well. Sometimes they're the best shows as well.
It was awesome.
Oh, yeah, it was a great show. It was packed and it was insane.
Well, I've always said, like, Eperfest was the rock star fantasy for us. And then the next day we went and played a hardcore show for all those kids. And they were like, we can't believe you're here. Yeah. You played Eperfest. Like, we did that. That's what was booked. It's not like we decided, like, we got to cleanse our hardcore souls and go play this.
But you know what? Like, we've been talking for almost 3 hours, man, and it's been amazing. And I really want to thank you guys for sharing your stories with us, especially Malone. Thank you for sharing that, man. And I'm glad that you guys are back and killing it again. So I've just got one final question, and that is like, what's next with Billy Club Sandwich? Are we going to get any new music, or you just taking it as it comes?
We have the one new song we started playing out, I guess, in September.
What's it called?
Mentiroso.
And we're working on, other new music. It was tough before because we couldn't all get in the same room as often, but now it's even weirder just because we can't get together at all. So we're learning this new thing of just recording riffs and emailing them back and forth and trying to put stuff together that way. So
I'll say this, I wasn't expecting it, and I know it's probably cliche, but the quarantine has actually helped, because Muttley and I have traded riffs back and forth over the past 2 or 3 weeks that maybe we normally wouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
So, I'm working from home, and there's no camera on my computer. So a lot of times I just sit there with my guitar while I'm working. Yeah. So
I want to thank you guys. Steve, Lewis, anything you want to say? Anything you want to ask?
I did want to say real quick that if anyone wants to actually pick up a Billy Club Sandwich CD or the DVD, is available from Ruction Records. That's the usual suspects, and of course the usual Japan tour as well.
DeadCityRecords.com or DeadCityMerch.com. He's got a bunch of the other shirts and stuff like that. And obviously, like Lou said, the Ruction carries a lot of the stuff as well. So that's a great place to go and get it.
Glenn, you got a new release coming out with No Redeeming with Bug Riot from Arizona, is that right?
Oh, yes, the split for Pitchfork, the split 7-ish was coming out sooner than the record. Our new record was supposed to come out May 2nd, but we don't even have it yet because of all this. It's still on a boat coming from Czech Republic.
I just want to sort of echo what you were saying, Waymer. Respect for sharing your stories with us. It's been a great 3-hour chat. I don't know how I'm going to edit this down into.
This is what happens if you try to do all the Billy Club at once. We all can talk.
Yeah, we only had Martin for a little bit. If we had Martin on the whole time, it would be even longer.
Actually, I've got one last question, actually. I was going to ask Martin this, but what's with the Charlie Brown T-shirt?
Somewhere around 2000, he just wore it to one show, and I don't know what. It's just him being him. I guess he kept wearing it. It's
no, I love it, man.
It totally turned into a thing because now everybody wants it.
Well, fans are starting to show up at shows wearing Charlie Brown shirts, which is crazy.
We played in Syracuse, and a whole bunch of the kids all brought homemade Charlie Brown shirts, and they're putting them on before. We start, because I'm sitting at the merch table and I'm watching them all put these on, and I'm like, holy shit. And I took a picture of them. I'm like, oh my God, this is great. and then Martin was out. I think Martin was outside, and he comes back in, and I'm like, yo, look. And he's like, whoa, that's awesome.
Once again, man, I want to thank you. It's been an amazing podcast, man. So to Glenn, Malone, and Gary, and Martin, who's internet connections disappeared.
He's cooking.
I expect he's eating that food by now.
His mum's gonna make some baller ass food, man. I bet it's gonna be tasting so good.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yo, well, thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
Nah, man, it's been a blast.
No, thank you guys, man.
Appreciate it.
Hopefully we see each other in the flesh soon, man. Here or there.
Yeah, it will happen, man.
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, just a little plug here. I've got my own podcast coming up soon with Len Carmichael from Landmine Studios, called The Upgrade, and it should be coming up in the next couple of weeks.
I'm going to edit that bit out. All right, don't worry.
Yeah, listen, you think this is bad? With the editing we have to do is a little. We talk too much. So.
But anyway, man, that's it for us. This has been the Everyone But Us podcast, Billy Club Sandwich.
You're listening to the Everyone But Us podcast.